Welcome back, my ghouls and goblins. It's a nice, cloudy, rainy looking day outside where I am. I don't know what the weather is like where you are, but I felt in the mood for poetry. And so I thought my creatures of the night will also probably want to hear some poetry. So let's get into that gag together. I'll be reading from four poets today, one of which is myself. So let's get into some poetry. The first poem I'll be reading is by yours truly, and it is my poem on my Substack, which I'll link down below as I always do in all my videos. And it's called Latanya's Neck of the Woods. There you'll be able to read my poetry. So the poem I'm reading today is called To You Who Can't Forgive Yourself. Shame is like hiding a body that no one knows is missing. It's dreams about sins you never committed but think you could, because of the ones you already did. It's like being dehydrated and refusing to drink water because somewhere inside you, you believe that you should evaporate. The grief you feel for the body you once knew makes you feel as though you are sinking to the bottom, like a heavy stone. The stinging of your lungs, the crippling suffocation of never feeling forgiven, even though you can be. Shame is making you run in place, as though you can outrun the past that way. Your shame doesn't make you holy. It convinces you that you could never be. Forgive yourself. That is a poem, again, on my Substack, and I wrote this right after, I was sick with COVID, and I think when you're sick is a time where you just tend to be very reflective, at least I am, and I felt like I needed to remind myself that I can be forgiven by God, by myself. I don't know how everyone else believes, but you can forgive yourself for your sins, for you falling short, for you not meeting the mark. If it's being consistent, if you're a content creator, an artist, wherever you are, office worker, you feel like you're not living up to your best potential, or maybe you've hurt yourself in the past, or others, even very human experience, you can be forgiven. I personally believe in God, so I believe I can be forgiven by God. But also, from being a believer, I believe that I can forgive myself as well. And I think forgiveness is like a multi perspective thing. So, yeah. Our next read is from one of my favorite living authors, poets, who is also an author. And it is Tracy Brimhall, Our Lady of the Ruins. The cover is sick. And this is her poem Hysteria, a Requiem. Kyrie, after the plague, we put away our lamentation, our children's cradles, and dance with all the required ecstasy. The monks follow us with brooms, barefoot. The doctors in the next room heal each other. A woman in a mask leads a midwife by a leash through the rooms. Behind her hood she warns, a nation has ended, but the world continues, jubilant and unclean. Outside, spring continues without us. We loved a God we didn't believe in and believed in a God we didn't love, but neither let our children live. Through cradles and the boarded windows, I see broken rocking horses in the streets. I hear nothing, nothing, not even the wind. I want to go through the houses and search for the living, but I am bound to the known. A sore rises on my scalp. I tell no one. The test of faith is not death, but fear. Now, tell me down below what you guys think this poem is about. We can discuss it together. I'll tell my thoughts in the comments down below. Tell me yours too, though. I absolutely love her work. I think she is just a poet that continues to like make me go like, oh my god, like I didn't know writing and words could do that. I also want to show you the shape of the poem because that is one of my favorite things about poetry is it breaks rules, which means you can also break form and structure of traditional writing. This is the poem shape. I love it. I love how narrative her writing is. Like it feels like we're getting snapshots of a story. And this is the summary of that. And I do believe a snapshot of a story is called a vignette, but I think she is somewhere between this mixture of a vignette, like it has the narrative of a vignette, but the structure of a poem. I love her. Read her. Next poet is Langston Hughes. The poem is called The Negro Speaks of Rivers. This is my favorite poem from him. And he is also my mother's favorite poet. Fun fact. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like rivers. Love that poem. It makes me think of past lives, which I believe past lives are real.
Clap if you don't care. A few people don't care.
Something about that, rivers are ancient. I'm not a geologist, but is that geology? Rivers have been here for a long time. Nature's been here for since the dawn of time. And so like a soul, like knowing many rivers and, you know, gives me the idea of being many places and living many lives. I love that poem. Our last poet is W. Todd Kaneko, and this is his poem, This Is How the Bone Sings. Fun fact, he was a professor of mine in my undergrad, and he's a great writer. And if you are a writer in your master's or undergrad, read the works by your professors. They've taught me a lot. They make you realize why they're the ones, teaching. This is his poem. They say this is how fire was invented. This is a poem about where we come from. It's called They Say This Is How the Crane Wife Fell. It's about survival in beast song, concentration camps, about our ancestors falling in love. This is a tilt of lightning, they say, through an old man's stomach, a jag of memory striking down the pear trees, sprouting from his chest. This poem is called They Say This Is How the Moon Remembers Heaven. They say this is how the foxwife lost her brood. They say this is how the witch burned. This is an ancient telephone call, the creation, myth of an extinct people. This is a story. Chew it until the words flicker out on your tongue. This poem is called They Say This Is How the Ghosts Feel. It's about not knowing how the ghosts feel. Wasn't that lovely? More than lovely. What I love about this poem book is that this taught me about a side of American history I never learned about. A time when immigrants from Asia, different parts of Asia, I do believe specifically Japan, don't quote me on that, research it, look it up for yourselves, but they were put in concentration camps by the US government. That's not a surprise because look at our history. But this taught me so much, and that is something that I hope that people take away from this is that poetry is a vessel like any form of writing, but what I love about poetry is it can teach, it can give you history, but he also talks about his family's experience in these concentration camps and how the trauma of that time period, it follows you through generations. And so I love that. That is all for now, my ghouls and goblins. Sorry for the abrupt cut. Some part of my video got messed up, but that's all for now, my ghouls and goblins. Tell me down below what you think.